Okay, it's Sunday, so against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what's lurking in this hive of summon villainy today. So, off heals, having gold healing doesn't mean the main heals aren't doing anything. Your other support is your best friend. That is almost never the case, right there. People do usually get very uppity about that one. You most commonly seen that, like, the Zenyatta is like, what the fuck? Why doesn't the Mercy have gold healing? Well, if you push Transcendence in the Graviton, you suddenly boost your healing quite high, don't you, my friend? Off tanks, having gold damage doesn't mean DPS are not doing anything. Also true, if your Zarya is running around 100% charge all the time, she's probably going to be doing a lot of damage. And Elims are stupid to get angry about, because Elims is kills and assists. Most people think it's just kills, apparently. You know, they're like, Moira's like, I've got gold Elims. Fucking no way, Moira. That's out of control. How? How could you possibly? It's not like everything you do is AoE or anything. People are kind of stupid like that. Let's see, leaving games and requeuing immediately has made me stop caring about the result of the game. Don't be that way. I assume, like, leaving after games after they end. Whatever, who cares? Alright, fine. I was like, wait, you're just like leaving quick play games and then rejoining them? No, I was leaving the end game stats. Who cares? I only watch the play of the game and then leave. That's all I care about. It also, like, doesn't actually, like, put you back in the matchmaker, even if you requeue, until it's finished all the post-game stuff regardless, because it has to actually, like, resolve the game before it can put you in another one. Playing 7 days a week, or playing 5 and 5 with 2 days off for consistent improvement. This is a fairly minor difference, to be honest with you. It probably doesn't make significant changes either way. The more time you can spend playing, the better, just generally speaking, but, like, you know, 5 like fucking Monday, Friday, weekends off, whatever, who cares? Like, basically the same thing. It'll be fine. Climbing, elo hell, and depression. I've tried so hard to improve, but it just feels like every time I start to make progress, I'll have a loss streak. I don't have thick skin and I tilt easily. I've really tried to grind and improve. I got a high of 2,680, and since then it's been constant losses down to 2,370. Oh no, how terrible. Currently, I feel like I have no impact on my games at all. It just feels like random chance, and if it will be an easy win or a complete wipe. I've played 442 games this season. Is that a lot or nothing at all? That is definitely a lot. That's more than I've played. Am I setting my standards too high? I just feel like a complete failure at everything I do. I can't even know life a game and get good. I mean, everybody improves at different rates, which is important to remember. But also, like, Overwatch is a game that's difficult to solo carry. There's a lot of random chance involved in the matchmaking, honestly. More so than most other games, because it is so very team-based. It's very hard to solo carry a game of Overwatch. It's very easy to solo throw a game of Overwatch. Conversely, though, life is difficult like that. So, it's just one of those things that, like, math is on your side, because it's like, if you play consistently well, there's only 5 people on your team that can be bad, but there's 6 people on the enemy team that can be bad. So given a large enough sample size, you'll climb over time as long as you play consistently well. Unless you're, like, dramatically better than the average of the game you're playing, you won't actually, like, solo carry most games, and climbing takes a really long time. As it turns out, grinding is not a sprint, or climbing is not a marathon, is not a sprint, it's a marathon. There we go. Got there in the end after fucking that one up about 12 times. That is a lot of games, but, like, conversely, lost streaks happen, feels bad, man. Like, I don't want to take the easy answer and say get thicker skin, but to an extent, that's kind of what you have to do, because, like, you do just sort of have to grind it out to climb. That's how all video games are, basically. Unless you're, like, actually a fucking god, in which case you'll climb easy, no problem, which is why streamers do it, and pro players do it, but, like, average people like you and me, nah, we gotta put effort into it. How do you actually stop tunnel visioning? It's like, So I know that I need to break this bad habit if I want to climb, but no matter how hard I seem to try, whenever I'm actually in a fight, all I can do is shoot, chase, and follow. I have sticky notes on my monitor saying, look at the kill feed, is your team ready to attack, and basics like that, but I can't seem to shake it. So one tip I've tried giving people, I've yet to hear back on if it's actually helped them or not, but one tip that I've given people is that you could try setting up like a metronome to play. There's websites that do this. You can try setting up a metronome to tone every few seconds, and then every time you hear it, you look around your screen. You check the kill, if the kill feed's up, you like look around to see if somebody's flanking you, stuff like that. And then theoretically, given enough time, you would no longer need the metronome because it would just become force of habit. This is sort of advice that I've stolen from an old League of Legends thing, which was people asking a similar question, which is like, how do I look at the mini-map more frequently? Which is basically the same thing as looking around in Overwatch. And the commonly given advice was, get a metronome, have it tone every 5 seconds, and when you hear it, look at the mini-map. And then eventually, you'll just do it through force of habit. So that's all, the only suggestion I've really got, other than just trying to be like really fucking aware of what you're doing, and if you chastise yourself enough for doing shit, eventually, the stupid monkey brain we have will be like, alright, I'll stop doing that now for real, though. I lose the most on the support with my highest healing per 10 minutes. What am I doing wrong? It's not that simple. It's not... You can't look at a stat and be like, this has the highest healing. Why am I not climbing on the support with the highest healing? It doesn't make any sense. Conversely, why am I not climbing on Bastion? He has my highest damage per 10 minutes, but I can't climb as a DPS, even though he's doing the most. I don't understand. It's not that simple, my dude. There's more to it than just the stats. Stats can lie to you as well, quite frequently. Because, you know, if you're playing like Moira, getting really high fucking healing per 10 minutes is not particularly hard. So, there's more to it. There's more to life than the stat. New player seeking a long-term mentorship or constructive feedback. Is Hanzo really a sniper? No, he's more akin to like a close mid-range brawler, really. He's not a fantastic sniper, because he has a projectile, so he's not a fantastic sniper. He can beat Widow, mostly just through the fact he can sort of spam shit, but he's not really like a sniper. Alright, so as I was saying, no, Hanzo's not really a sniper. He can beat Widow in a duel, but mostly because he can sort of spam. Widow can't spam so easily, so he can sort of like brute force it in a way, and he's firing these giant fucking tree trunks. So he can sort of beat Widow a lot of the time, unless the Widow is like really good, because then she just clicks on his head when he comes around the corner, you know. But there's just put your cursor over the man and click on them is not the most consistent way to tell someone how to get better at a sniper. The cat's here. There goes the cat. He's behind the monitor now. So no, Hanzo is more akin to like a closer, mid-close range bruiser type. Somewhere between like Soldier and McCree, sort of. Anyway, is Ryan's shield slower? I have reaction block to shatter in over a month. I feel like no, it's not slower. People are insane. People have fucking tricked themselves into thinking that Reinhardt's shield is slower. It's not slower. I reaction blocked to shatter like the last time I played. Like, it's definitely not slower. People have just tricked themselves. There was a thread on here like a couple of weeks ago, like 2-3 weeks ago at this point, about how, like, proof that the shield wasn't actually slower. Question about sensitivity and DPI and improving aim. I'm clicking on the wrong window. I'm clicking on the fucking OBS preview window. I'm trying to get better. But I was hoping for some little tips and tricks. When it comes to McCree, for example, I can barely hit targets close to me. That's natural. If an Ana is standing right in front of me and not looking at me, I miss every shot. But if she's standing further back, I would probably hit her once or twice. That's, like, natural. The close, like, you would think that, like, someone being closer to you makes them easier to hit, but there is a point where they become too close, and it actually becomes harder to hit them. Because, like, the Genji, like, flipping all around you, right? Like, he's close to you, so that should make it easier, right? It's not quite that simple, unfortunately. So that's actually fairly natural. If the person's standing still, like, you know, and you're pretty close to them, that's a different matter, but, like, assuming the person isn't just, like, standing like a statue, that's actually quite natural. Yeah, moving too much and panicking tends to be the issue with that one. I know I have trouble hitting people that are close to me when I'm playing McCree. And it is just because, like, I move too much. Like, I'll overshoot the target most of the time, more than anything else, so... Just, like, basically, if the person's, like, really close to you, just kind of, like, slow down is, the best I could say, probably. Panic in general is bad, like, try not to do that, but I mean, fantastic advice, right? Don't panic, and you'll do better. Another issue I have is tracking, which I think I'm alright at, except my shots lag behind the enemy one step. Well, that seems like it would be an easy thing to calibrate in the moment if it's only like one step behind, because then you just need to speed up your aim for like half a second and you'll be aligned properly again. Some people are better at like tracking compared to flicking. Like, I'm not very good at tracking, but I'm quite good at flicking, so that's also not surprising if you're like not great at tracking, because some people aren't. My friend, I cannot see the monitor any longer. My son. So, I don't really have much advice other than when you're fighting and you find yourself shaking, panicking, blah blah blah, aiming badly, just try and like take a second, breathe, chill, take an extra like second or two to line things up, you know. You usually have more time to line up a shot than you think you do. People are always like too fidgety. I shouldn't say always. People are almost always too fidgety when they're aiming. They're like way overshoot targets. It's very rare you'll see someone undershoot a target. They're usually too eager and start panicking. Just like take a moment, chill, and take a little bit longer to line up the shots, because you probably have longer to line it up than you think you do. And sometimes taking that extra half seconds to line it up is all you need. Enemy movement tips. I did not mean to click on the thread itself. So to get something out of the way, I am a Soldier 76 and a Bastion main. There are about 3 characters that really know how to evade me, and that's Tracer, Lucio, and Genji. I know that they have high mobility, and some of it is prediction. While I am playing Bastion specifically, though, Tracer and Genji do this run around me in a circle move. I used to play on a lower sensitivity, and when that started to get me killed, I raised it, and I'm winning that battle slot more. Emphasis on more, I still only win like 35-40% of those duels, so I have a question. Should I just try and avoid the situation, or there's some drills I can practice? So I don't think that there's really a fantastic drill for that kind of thing. Like, I can't even like really think of anything offhand that you would be able to do. It's one of those things where, like, if the Tracer or the Genji are on top of you, like, you're gonna have trouble keeping up with them, because that's the whole point of doing that maneuver. And, like, I've done this on, like, not particularly mobile heroes before. Like, I've been playing, like, Bridget, and I've just been, like, jumping fucking over the Bastion a couple times, and he's had trouble keeping up with me. Like, it's one of those things where you're just better off trying to avoid the situation where the Genji or Tracer are just, like, flipping around you, like, right on top of you, because at that, like, as we were talking about earlier, when the Genji is, like, right on top of you, flipping all around you, hey, it's closer. Seems like it should make it easier, right? No, not really, actually, in practice. It tends to be quite difficult to keep up with them. It's the kind of thing where you're better off not being in that situation, because I would say that situation doesn't favor Bastion, really. I would say it favors the flanker more. Also, try and, like, get someone to help you, because if you got, like, a fucking, like, Reinhardt in front of you and the Genji's flipping all around you, the Reinhardt should basically be able to beat him off of you, and then you don't have to do it all by yourself, right? So, like, maybe employ friendship to try and ease that burden a bit. But it is the kind of thing where, like, you're better off trying to not be in that situation, if at all possible, because I don't think it favors the Bastion or the Soldier. Coaches of teams, what should we look for in tryouts? I mean, it's more important. I would say the most important thing is that the person actually, like, gels with the team more than anything else, more than actual skill. Like, it could be possible that someone is the most skilled person you see could end up being the worst person for the team, because they just clash too much with people on the team. And at that point, it's not actually productive anymore. Like, team synergy, I would say, is more important than anything else. So I would say that you should look out, like, skill is obviously important. You don't want to hire an absolute trash player. But I would say that synergy with the team is slightly more important than actual skill. So you know, try and find someone who seems like they would be a good fit for the team personality-wise, as well as skill-wise, because you don't want your players butting heads all the time. You want them to actually, like, get along with each other, startlingly enough. When to shoot Zarya bubble as opposing Zarya, if you think you will kill the person under the bubble. And that's true of everyone. If you think you will kill the person under the bubble by breaking the bubble, break the bubble. Doesn't matter if the Zarya gets charge, if you kill the person under the bubble. Because, yeah, she got 40 charge off of it, but you killed a person. Killing a person is the most impactful thing you can do in the game. So, if you think you can kill the person, break the bubble. And that's true of all heroes, not just Zarya. If you think you can kill the guy under there, kill it. Break the bubble. Pop it and kill him. Question about competitive play. So I'm fairly new to the game. I really like Wrecking Ball and D.Va, so do you think I'll be able to win games by just playing those two heroes? Yeah, you can win games just by playing any two heroes. You're going to have a harder time as, like, Wrecking Ball, because I don't think he's a very good hero, but you can climb playing only one or two heroes, basically. I climb by playing Bridget and Reinhardt. And that's what I do. I play those two heroes. And sometimes I have to play other roles, but those are, like, the two heroes I always play, basically. I try to pick Bridget because she's the best hero I'm best at. If not, I'll pick Reinhardt because he's second best. And then after that, it goes like Moira and stuff like that. So, yeah, there are people who climb playing only one hero and, like, bad heroes as well. So, like, you can do whatever, you know. Might be harder for you, but you can definitely do it. What is your favorite role and why? So, my favorite role is actually DPS, and that's just because I like the, more mechanically interesting heroes, which tends to be DPS heroes. It's like, I'm going to talk about League of Legends again. League of Legends, my favorite role is top lane, because a lot of the top lane heroes are fairly difficult to execute. Someone like, you know, Riven, if you played the game, is fairly hard to play well. And that's why I enjoy playing Akali, and things like that. These people are, like, hard to play. And I enjoy them because they take a skill to play. I've also always been a fan of, like, games like Devil May Cry. I've always liked the mechanically difficult games and heroes to play. So that's why, like, when I started playing the game, I really wanted to play Tracer, because I thought she was, like, the coolest hero mechanically, basically. And that ended up not really working out, because no one wanted to play tank, so I ended up playing Reinhardt. But those are, like, that's the kind of thing I like doing. Like, I like the heroes that take an amount of skill just to play well, because I always think that they are the most interesting heroes to watch, and the most satisfying to play well. Asides that, though, I also do like tanks, because this is why I really like Bridget. Bridget is also one of my favorite heroes, because I also, having played top lane, I also enjoy playing heroes like Shen, Jax, Nautilus. These heroes are not hard to play. They are, in fact, very straightforward heroes to play. But they are big, bruisery heroes that push people around and, like, assert themselves. You know, these are the people who, like, walk past the enemy tank line and then start bullying the carries in the back line. Just like, fuck you guys, I'm gonna walk up on this dude. I'm gonna walk up to this squishy archer and start beating him with my giant fucking hammer. And he's gonna have to respect that, or I'll beat him to death, you know. I also like playing the heroes that, like, go in there and, like, push people around and, like, make space. The sort of juggernaut type heroes I enjoy playing as well. And, you know, it's kind of two extreme opposite ends there, because juggernaut type heroes are usually very easy to play. Like, Bridget is quite easy to play. But my favorite heroes and roles are, like, the mechanically difficult heroes to play. Not really like Widowmaker. Widowmaker is certainly, like, fun to watch, a really good Widowmaker, but I'm not so interested in, like, really being a fantastic Widowmaker. I'd rather be a fantastic, like, Genji, Tracer, Sombra, something like that, because I think they are... Widow, to an extent, is just click on the man, you know? There's more to it than that, but it's, like... basically is just like, click on the man, woo, play the game. Whereas, like, a Genji, a Tracer, a Sombra, something like that, pulling off a fantastic play is, like, a lot more interesting to me than the Widowmaker clicking on 6 people. But those are my favorite heroes. I like the hard-to-play ones, and I like pushing people around. Sensitivity question. If that's too high or if it's normal, that is quite close to what mine is. It's fine. I'm a new player, and I play Pharah mod of the time. Can you guys give me any tips on how to play her better? I'm sorry for making fun of you. It's not your native language. So, my gut reaction is just always, that's not how you spell that word. My apologies. Most obvious tip, just think about cover for dimension, because you don't want to be floating out in open space, because then that just makes you really easy to shoot and kill. You got to use cover while you're in the sky still. And then the other one is she has 2 movement abilities, so try and get used to using them, because Pharah is actually one of the more mobile heroes in the game, because she actually does have 2 movement abilities, which is quite rare. But it takes an amount of getting used to how to use them correctly to really get the most out of them. But cover in the 3rd dimension is the biggest one. Watch out for that. What would a weekly schedule for someone serious about improving at Overwatch look like? Just play as much as you possibly can if you want to get really serious about it. As much time as you can possibly allot to it. That's as much as you can do. Anyone have any ideas what's going to happen with the upcoming Roadhog changes? There's for the next PTR. Does anyone have any idea? So let's think about that, right? So I think make his gun more consistent, because the spread pattern is kind of crazy. Make it a little bit less random. That would also make it easier to one-shot the people when you hook them, which is not really what they are super about, but whatever. So it sort of depends on what they want to do with Roadhog, because I think there's 2 different ways you go with it. You either lean into him being a damage hero, which they've been shying away from over time, so I doubt that that's the way they go into. Because if you want to focus on the damage aspect of Roadhog, I would say that you reduce his survivability, but you increase his damage, broadly speaking. Make it easier for him to one-shot somebody when he hooks them, or 2-shot them, whatever. Maybe nerf whole hog, but then nerf whole hog, or nerf take a breather, but to compensate for that, increase his damage. So then he's less about he's more about picking people off and making plays like that. Or the other way is you lean more into the area denial supportive aspect of him, because Roadhog does have more supportive aspects to him than people would think, because Whole Hog is a very good denial ultimate. It basically says, I don't want to have this team fight, let's just call this one off, I'd say. And then the hook is a crowd control effect, and it's a very strong one because it pulls them out of position very sharply at 21-meter range, right? So, and you either lean into the damage or you lean into the supportive aspect. So, if you want to lean into the supportive aspect, I would say maybe lower his damage more, but attach something to the hook that's after somebody's been hooked, the person takes more damage from allies for a 1-second period, to try and emphasize coordinating picks with your team. Specifically exclude Roadhog from the people who get the damage, but it's Roadhog's team that gets the damage boost, so then you have to coordinate it with your team a little bit more. I'm not sure what you would do to buff Whole Hog. Maybe increase the knockback dramatically, so it really is just this team fight's not happening. And I would say also put something in there that he does more damage to barriers specifically. Because if you're going to go into the supportive aspects, what are the utility things Roadhog's good at? Area denial with his ultimate, zoning with his hook, picking people with the hook, and damaging barriers. So, I would say if you want to focus on the damage aspect, nerf the utility, increase damage, fairly straightforward, or nerf damage, increase utility aspect of Roadhog. Given the changes they've made to Roadhog up until this point, which broadly speaking have been decreased damage, increased utility, and survivability, I would be more inclined to think it's going to be the opposite of that. Like, it's not going to be a damage buff. It's probably going to be some kind of utility change, and his damage will probably stay roughly the same. Like, which, you know, is sad. Like, Roadhog's come a very long way, because I always thought that this is what happens to every, like, hook hero in every single fucking game, though. Like, every game, you can find, every game that has a hook hero in it, you can find examples of this. League of Legends, Dota, they're all the same. They've all got the hero that has the hook. The hero that has the hook is always the one that has the biggest backlash against them, because they punish people for positioning badly. And people don't know they're positioning badly, so they get punished by the hook frequently. As a result, people get very angry at the hook. And they say the hook is overpowered, the hook has no counterplay, blah, 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 blah. Excuse, excuse, excuse. And this is almost always never true. Because the counterplay to the hook is don't stand around in the open like a dumbass, right? Like, that's the counterplay to the hook, but positioning badly is something that's hard for people to identify. So they tend to just blame the hook as being overpowered. So the backlash against the hero is always very strong. And as a result, the hero just gets nerfed. And this happens in all games. It's happened to Roadhog. It happened to Blitzcrank in League of Legends. It happened to Thresh in League of Legends. It happened to Pudge in Dota. Like, it's happened to all of them. Every hero that has a hook is a big source of salt for the community of a video game. So it's just the inevitable way of life. The hook hero always gets nerfed and eventually just slowly becomes less and less viable as a result. And then they go, oh, fuck, we, like, overly nerfed this hero, but now if we buff the hook hero, oh god, people are gonna fucking throw about 5 toys out of the pram. Like, it's gonna be terrible. Anyway, so that's what I would do. I would lean more heavily into one aspect of him rather than letting him sort of sit somewhere in between the two of them, kind of like he is now. Like, just go hard. Like, is he a tank or is he a damage? Like, just lean into one of them. Is he utility zoning or is he picks and kills? Which is it, you know? Just picked up Overwatch. What are some things I should know? Look, there's only so many times I can repeat things like, don't stagger, don't just, like, ult people when team fights are over. There's only so many ways to phrase those things. The essentials of being a shot caller, Rhine skin fix isn't enough. Since launch on main account, the Rhine Ditto was a favorite part for me before the summer skins came out. The new football skin they put in during the summer games has been irritating me for quite a while at this point. For those who don't know, the skin has a different voice line that he doesn't say till way after he uses his ult. In comparison, his normal ult voice is reactable, meaning that as an opposing Rhine, it can react to him using his ult and block it in time. I didn't actually know that was the case. Interesting. I've not personally had this experience, but it does seem like the sort of thing that is entirely possible, so I won't just shrug it off. It's not an issue I've had, but I can certainly see that being an issue. Yeah, fix that if so. Here's the thing though. The football Reinhardt skin is actually the best skin in the game, because have you heard the sound effect the hammer makes when it hits somebody? It's fantastic. Such a satisfying clunk noise when you hit somebody in the skull. I love it. Is low diamond possibly the worst rank in all of Overwatch? No, it's actually platinum. It's like mid to upper platinum. Because that's where people have, like, got massive egos and won't work with their team, but they aren't skilled enough to actually compensate for fucking their team over. Any tips for adjusting to the new controls? Not my area. I wouldn't know. Questions about Ana kits. Is she like Ryan, where the worst players focus too much on DPSing, the mid-level players focus too much on healing, only in the high-level players? Yes, that is exactly the case with Ana. She is exactly like that. I never really, like, directly compared that to Reinhardt in my mind, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, she is exactly like that, it's true. Do nano boosts that don't result in kills often still justify their value on the fact they distract zone out enemies and make space for your team? Ideally it gets kills, but kills is not necessarily the only indication of the ultimate getting value. Yes, there are times where like, you ulting somebody, like, they start engaging, you ult somebody, and then the ult drives them away. And then that ult has stopped the engagement. So, in essence, if you're, like, defending, that's all you're really trying to do. If you're attacking, you are more actively trying to kill people, but then zoning people as well still has its value on attack as well. So, you know, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to get kills. Ideally it does, but it's not necessarily the only indication of success. How often do you use Nano Boost? Mostly just for heals? I would say that's probably the majority use case at this point, because it's really easy to, like, a tank has gotten, like, badly out of position, or somebody's gotten caught. If you Nano Boost the person now, they probably survive, actually, especially if they're a tank and you can heal them afterwards. Like, the Reinhardt does a stupid charge, you Nano Boost him, he's actually suddenly become very difficult to kill, even though he was almost dead a second ago. And that actually ends up fucking people over more, because if they see the Reinhardt charge in, they will use their abilities and the focus and ammo and everything on the Reinhardt. Then you heal him, suddenly spike heal him for 300, and suddenly he's tankier. They've blown cooldowns on this dude who didn't die, so they've wasted they might have wasted ultimates on him. Like, they've wasted resources on this dude, and now suddenly like, he didn't die, and they don't have those resources to use anymore. So that can be like a huge value swing for your team, if you get the right heal off. So just for the heals has probably become the majority use case at this point. That's my experience anyway. Anecdotal at best, but, you know, that's what I've observed anyway. When do you scope versus unscope? Is range the only factor in this? I've noticed that some people have a preference one way or the other, and it mostly depends on if the person seems to prefer projectile or hit scan. Like, I prefer hit scan weapons, so I typically play scoped more than unscoped as Ana. But I have noticed that some players, like, basically always play scoped, and some people play basically always unscoped. I've seen people play unscoped, but they're still hitting people 1,000 miles away because they just are more used to projectile weapons, so... personal preference also appears to be a factor, but range is also a factor as well, because obviously the further away someone is, the easier it is to hit them with a hit scan weapon as opposed to a projectile weapon. So range is a factor, but there also seems to be personal preference. Again, anecdotal at best, but that is what I have observed. Do you find that playing Ana helps you improve at other hit scan heroes? Which... No, I don't think there's that much overlap between the hit scan heroes, really, because they're all fundamentally aimed differently. Like, Soldier does not aim the same as McCree, McCree does not aim the same as Widowmaker, and none of them really aim quite the same as Ana. McCree is probably actually the closest overlap, I would say, like, more so than, like, Widow or something like that, because Ana isn't really trying to get you to aim precision, like Widowmaker is. And McCree isn't necessarily about precision, like, he is about precision, but, like, not to the same degree as Widowmaker. McCree is just trying to land shots, whereas Widowmaker is trying to land aimed shots. So there's a crucial difference there. So it's probably, like, McCree, I would say, is probably actually the biggest overlap, counterintuitively enough, but I don't think any of the hit scans really help you improve at any of the other hit scans, because none of them quite aim the same way as each other. So it doesn't really help you build muscle memory one way or the other. Are there situations where you would want to use Moira or Mercy personally instead of Ana? Yeah, I would say you want to pick Mercy if Mercy has very strong synergy with your team. Like, if you're running like a dive comp or you have a Pharah, Mercy is going to get more value than Ana some of the time. Not always. Ana can still get more value on a dive comp depending on how things go. But if like there's a Pharah, you might want to consider using Mercy. Moira is more survivable than Ana, so if like you're having a lot of trouble staying alive, Moira can be a better pick than Ana, just because she is significantly harder to kill than Ana is, and she's significantly less weak to dive herself as well. So there are times you would want to do so, but I think Ana also fits into most situations, really, except against very heavy dive, in which case Ana like gets fucked. What level of sleep dart accuracy do you consider good or bad? Huge variance on that one, because like just landing the one, if you land one trank the entire game, but it was the nano boosted Genji that's gonna win the enemy team the game, shit. That 1% accuracy, it was all it needed to be. Like, there's such huge variance on how accurate the sleep dart needs to be that I don't think there's like a hard and fast, good, bad accuracy for it. Especially since it's such a hard projectile to actually land consistently. How to think critically as Ana and improve your play. This is like a video. Let's look at the video. It also touches upon... Let's just look at the name of the video so you can watch it if you want to. Overwatch, coaching, critically thinking as Anna, how to improve your play by Flats Gaming. Go check it out if you want to. They're probably, being a 4.3k player, higher than I ever got, so they probably know more about Anna than me. Like, way higher than I ever got. Lucio, fastest rollouts on all control maps. I mean, I guess we'll look at the video so you can come check it. Apparently I've been on this video before. Fastest Lucio map, control map rollouts, deep Overwatch. There you go. Popular non-in-depth callouts. So I need some quick and easy callouts because I play in EU servers. I want to communicate so I can speak to my teammates. I mean, there's like, X needs help, dive X, X has ult, be careful of X, like an ultimate or a hero, one way or the other. X is behind us. Back out, go in, their healers are dead. Those are the most like popular non-in-depth ones I can think of. I can think of other popular ones, but they start to get kind of like a little bit convoluted. Like if we're talking like easily communicate in different languages, you know, we want very few words. So like the name and then what they're doing, or to dive them, or like avoid them, help them, whatever. If you're gonna include like the name, that's gonna cut down on what you need to say really. Like, that's like what I can think of offhand. Why do I great? Then awful. To begin, I'm in bronze. I play Anna. She's probably my best healer. I started a couple months ago on Anna after I started getting crazy, kill crazy on Zen. Gotten quick scoping, blah, blah, blah. I stick to the back. My question is, why do some games I heal 12k and others 6k? Stats, like, I also always get gold heals when solo queuing, but I feel like I'm not doing my best sometimes. So here's the thing, is that stats, and what is a good stat, varies from game to game. And the example I always give is weapon accuracy, because, like, think about the enemy team, right? Like, if you are playing against, like, quintuple tank, one healer, right? An accuracy of, like, 60% is suddenly not actually that impressive, because if they're all tanks and one healer, they're very easy to hit. So you would expect that to inflate your accuracy. Conversely, if they're like 5 flankers and Lucio, an accuracy of 40% actually suddenly becomes pretty good because they're playing like exclusively hard to hit heroes. Which means a lower number can end up being good because they're hard to hit. So like, what is a good stat varies from game to game. Like, if you're playing with, like, triple tank, as playing, like, Anna or Moira, you're gonna put up an absolutely insane healing. Like, some games as Moira, I've healed 25k, because there's been 4 tanks on the team, right? And then other games, I've played with 5 DPS, so I've ended up healing, like, 7, 8k as Moira, right? Because then suddenly it's all DPSs that are 1,000 miles away from me, and they don't have that many hit points to heal, right? So, like, what is a good stat varies so much from game to game. You have to actually, like, look at the game and say to yourself, alright, so I got 40% accuracy this game, but, like, what was their team comp? Was I landing the shots I needed to? Was I, like, just shooting as I was walking around the map, which was, like, deflating my score? You know, things like that. Like, you gotta look at, like, what happened in the game, and then decide if the stats you got are good or not, because what is a good stat can vary from game to game. And like, this is why I think deaths is the only stat that's like worth tracking, because that's like an objective metric in all circumstances, because they're like, the less time you spend dead, the more time you spend interacting with the game, which means on average you should have a higher chance of winning. I think deaths is the only stat that doesn't lie to you. The lower your deaths are, that's always going to be better than having high deaths. There's like no situation in which having high deaths is beneficial. Low deaths is always beneficial. There are games where you're going to have a higher number of deaths, in average still, because like, if you're playing like Anna and they run really heavy dive, it's not unexpected for you to die more frequently than you would otherwise. But like, deaths, you want it as low as possible always. And like, every stat you always want high as possible, but like, you know, it changes from game to game. But the less time you spend dead, the more time you spend interacting with the game, the less time your team spends without you, all kinds of things that are, like, always good. So, like, if you, like, do care about your accuracy, your healing, your damage done, your limbs, whatever, you gotta look at the game, and you gotta say, what happened in the game? You gotta look at what happened. You gotta look at what your team was, and you gotta think, well, is me having a higher accuracy really that good for this game? Or is me having a low accuracy for this game actually justified? Is this, like, 30k damage good, or was I just playing against, like, quad tank 2 healers, like, and it inflated my damage done stat? You know, stuff like that. You gotta think about it like that. You can't just look, like, there's no objectively good number for like any of these stats to be. It varies, you know, over like your average across all your games. Maybe you can take a little bit more to heart, but like game to game, you gotta look at the game. I know, shocking. Anyway, make a solo queuing team. Calm down when we don't have 2-2-2. I'm the wrong person to ask about that. I love to fight people. I'm not good at calming people down. It's a VoD, so not for the time. Pulse bomb keybind. For the last month, I've been doing a lot of thinking about what button. Left shift is, I found, the most common one, because right bumper is crazy as hell. Left shift, I've heard, is a really good place to rebind pulse bomb to, because nobody uses left shift to blink. They always use right mouse button. So if you put it there, basically you don't have to take, like, it's a less awkward movement for your hand to make, which can make it easier on average. Like, I've heard that that's a very common rebinding for tracer players. I used to leave it on Q, because, you know, I don't really change many key bindings. I usually leave them pretty close to the default. The one thing I would say is, like, if you play Pharah, rebind concussive shot to right mouse button, because if you're going to use the boosters, you're going to use the spacebar. Let's be real. So right mouse bumper being boosters, right mouse button rather being boosters, who cares? Rebind that to concussive blast. That makes way more sense to me as a key binding than it being on E. My question is more to do with enjoyment of the game, rather than learning a skill. I find it really difficult to enjoy this game these days. This isn't because of teammates or the behavior in chat in general. I just find myself longing for the Overwatch I played in late 2017. When Bridget didn't exist and Mercy just had her double res removed, I find it more and more that I'm placed in situations where the optimal strategy is to swap to a sniper or other hero on which I've had next to zero playtime. Every time Bridget kills me trivially, I find it more difficult than ever to adopt the improvise, adapt, overcome mentality. A lot of people have that issue. So, like, that's the thing with any kind of evolving game, is that it's not always going to be the same game, right? Oh, I'm moving the wrong window. Oh, God. It's not always going to be the same game. It's going to change over time, and as a result, the game that you enjoyed might stop existing. So, in the end, like, you might just stop playing the game because you don't find the new incarnation of the game enjoyable enough. And that's just how it is with this kind of game, really. Like, people drop in and out of all kinds of games because they get updated over time. A lot of people dropped out of playing, like, League of Legends, particularly after they changed, like, the runes and masteries, which was a significant change to the game. It, like, drastically altered quite a lot of things about that game, because it was a core feature that, like, got completely removed and, like, taken apart and put back together again. So it was entirely different. A lot of people stopped playing after that. I know, like, Overwatch, like, people have stopped playing for various points in time, because Overwatch has gone through some fairly big shifts. Like, I know a lot of people didn't like when really heavy dive was the meta, so people stopped playing them. A lot of people didn't like the fact that just, like, the olden school, like, deathball comps became less viable, so they stopped playing. Some people stopped playing if, like, the hero they enjoy playing becomes bad, you know? Like, some people only really enjoy playing one or two heroes, so if one of them is gone, they stop playing. That's just, like, how it is. It's not really, like, unexpected. If you prefer how, like, you know, it's a very common thing with, like, WoW players, right? Oh, it was so much better before Wrath of the Lich King. Oh, Burning Crusade was the only good expansion. Oh, after that it all went to shit. Oh, no. Oh, God, Cataclysm ruined it all. You know, things like that. Like, it's part of playing any kind of game that is continually updated. You might not like it after enough updates happen. It might not be the same game to you, and then you won't like it anymore. Unfortunate, but it happens. Such is life. Sometimes you get bored of the game as well. Sometimes you just, like, stop playing a game because you just don't find it fun anymore. I am new to PC, got 5 days ago. I used my arm to aim, as I very scared of building a wrist problem. I wrist aim. don't matter to me. I've spent a lot of time on the computer and nothing's ever happened to me. You know, RSI and everything exists, so, you know, don't necessarily take that for being anything. Does my whole entire arm rest on the desk, or is it, like, slightly in the... I don't know. I don't aim like this. This is too in-depth for me. I don't know. How do you train game sense? What exactly should I focus on to improve my game sense? What should I ignore? How do I properly split my attention and get practice art? My game sense. I can actively train mechanical aim and free-for-all, but I'm having trouble figuring out a training routine for game sense. This is a question that comes up fairly often. I don't really have a great answer for it, honestly, because it's one of those things. It's one of those questions that's, like, I know what you mean, but at the same time, it's so vague that it's hard to nail down, like, a specific piece of advice. I would say... so, try to focus on... just, like, baseline... what is my team doing right now? Just like every now and then, like quite frequently, ask yourself, what is my team doing right now? Like, what are we trying to do? Are we in a position to fight? Is this fight good? Like, is my team ready to fight? Is my team not ready to fight? Are we split up right now? Are we together? Do we have an ult advantage on them? Like, you know, like just try and ask yourself, like, what's my team up to right now? What have we got going for us right here? You know, things like that. Because to me, like, game sense as well could vary a lot from, like, interpretation from person to person. To me, game sense is, like, the whole, like, macro level of the game. Like, ult economy, positioning is kind of game sense. Like, ult economy, like, coordinated, like, pushing in... realizing when you've won or lost a fight, and like when you're winning a fight, knowing you're winning to keep going forward with momentum, knowing when you're losing to start retreating backwards. So I'd say just like every like 10 seconds between every fight, like, you know, just ask yourself, what's my team doing right now? Just like take stock of the situation. Like, what's my team doing? What do we have resource-wise right now? What's our team good at? Like, things like this. Just, like, stop and, like, look at your team, like, what's going on here? And try to, like, focus on that. Because I would say also, like, if you're paying attention to that kind of thing, everything else will kind of come as a result of getting good at that. Because if you're wondering, like, things like, what resources do we have right now? Do we have an advantage, like, ult economy-wise? You naturally at that point will also start thinking, well, what about the enemy team as well? Just kind of like as a consequence of thinking, do we have an ult advantage right now? Because then you're going to have to stop and think about it for a second. You're going to think about your team, obviously, but then you're going to have to think, well, I just saw X and Y ult a second ago, so they don't have theirs. I haven't seen Zed use his ultimate in a while, though, so he's probably getting pretty close to it. I have... like A used their ultimate a while ago, but it charges very quickly, so it's probably getting close. Like, you'll sort of naturally go through that kind of process as you think about it. At least I did. I can only really tell you from personal experience, right? It's like, if you're trying to keep track of that kind of thing, you sort of start thinking about other things as time goes by, and then it ends up, like, all sort of building up together. But I would say just, like, try and think, like, what's my team doing right now? Like, what are we doing? What have we got? What's going on? Just take stock of the situation. Because that's, like, game sense to me. And then, like, positioning also comes into it, but positioning is more of like a micro-level thing. Positioning is just, like, asking yourself why you died frequently, more than anything else. But that's, like, all I can really think of. It's one of those questions that I find extremely difficult to answer. Can you stop doing that, though, please, perhaps, camera? What do you got? What are you stuck on over here? What a professional operation we run around here. Alright, which role is best suited to shot calling? Supports. They are generally the least mechanically taxing heroes, so they have less to think about on that side, giving them more mental bandwidth to worry about, like, team play. They also, generally speaking, unless you're like Lucia, are the furthest away from the front line, and as a result, they're furthest back, which means they have the widest view of events. Didn't mean to do that. As a result, they have the widest view of events, which makes it easier for them to keep track of things. So support, I think, easily is the best role for shot calling. When to play tank duos that don't synergize? Don't. I don't think that there's really ever a good time to do that, other than, like... See, I don't think, right, like, okay, so, like, to me, the heroes that don't have synergy are, like, Diva Roadhog, Winston Roadhog. Roadhog ties in a lot here, you might have noticed. Like, Winston Reinhardt, like, even then, though, they kind of do, like... I don't really consider, like, Rein Diva to be a situation where they don't synergize at all with each other, right? Like, I think they can synergize together. Because Diva, like, there is a synergy in that, like, Diva's defense matrix blocks important projectiles, which elongates Reinhardt's shield, and also negates certain ultimates that, like, Reinhardt can't deal with. Like, she still deals with Rocket Barrage and Pharah in general. Reinhardt can do nothing to deal with that, so that can, like, plug up the gap in tank-wise, and, like, they do have synergy with each other. Their ults even have some synergy with each other. Like, it's very easy to, like, chuck your self-destruct on the other side, and then when they turn around, Reinhardt earth shatters them, that kind of thing. Like, I don't think they have no synergy. I think the, like, non-synergy examples are, like, Roadhog Diva, Roadhog Winston, Zarya Diva, to an extent. Like, those, I think, are, like... Basically, when you start getting two off-tanks together, that's when I think, like, it starts to get bad. Like, that, like... Something like that, I don't see as, like, really being an issue, particularly. Again, Orisa Diva, same deal. Diva's even, like, mobile. Orisa's very non-mobile, so is Reinhardt. Like, so she can, like, cover, like, the high ground issues that are happening, things like that. Like, so I would say never... do that, ideally, but also I think I have a different definition of tanks that don't synergize than you do, because also, like, Winston Zarya synergize with each other. Like, that's the old school dive comp right there, where you would bubble the Winston when he jumps in. Makes it very hard for them to kill the Winston at that point, because they have to get through the bubble. It makes him immune to crowd control, makes it easier for him to get in, blah, 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 blah. And then the ults synergize, because, like, a dive comp might have a Tracer, it might have a Pharah, it might have a Genji. All of these heroes are good with Graviton. Like, you know, that kind of thing. So, like, I think I have a different definition of, like, the synergy than you do. Tips for playing Winston and low Ela. My questions are, is Diva the only other tank that Winston pairs well with? No, we just talked about this. Zarya also pairs well with Winston. Somewhat like, Orisa... and Reinhardt don't necessarily synergize with Reinhardt, but Winston can help them in a way that, like, he's more mobile, so he can contest high ground / long range defenders, or you know, people like Widowmaker, Genji, blah blah blah, Sombra. He can contest them. Reinhardt can't. So, like, Winston can be picked with them still, because, like, you need to deal with something on the enemy team. Winston doesn't necessarily synergize with Reinhardt outright, but, like, Reinhardt can't deal with those things, Winston can deal well with those things, so that it ends up working well, even though they don't, like, strictly synergize with each other. What are some tips for playing Winston with an uncoordinated team? Should I play him more slowly like a Ray? No. Well, if they're playing coordinated, then yes, you will have to play more slowly, because you're going to have to wait more to find opportunities. You're going to have to spend more time, like, picking and prodding at them to drive them apart. But if the enemy team is uncoordinated, be as aggressive as possible. Like, go dive on those people who are out of position and making mistakes. Like, play really aggressively if they are uncoordinated, because if they're uncoordinated, there's going to be more people off by themselves, there's going to be more people easy to pick off, blah, 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 blah. And just in general, like, Winston is an aggressive tank. You don't want to have to play slowly. Like, don't ever be doing stuff like you're standing in the choke point, putting the bubble down in the choke point. Like, that's a waste of time. Don't do that kind of thing. You do want to go as fast as possible. He's an aggressive tank, just naturally. So you want to, like, lean into that, because it's part of, like, who he is as a hero. But, like, sometimes, if they're, like, really close together, you'll have to spend a little bit more time trying to, like, drive them away from each other, or wait for somebody to stray off, blah, 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 blah. But you do want to be, like, as aggressive as you possibly can be. Which support to play in a given situation? Is there any guide which tells which support is good on which map and in which team class? That's a very open question, isn't it? Broadly speaking, Play Bridget when there are a lot of things, like, I play Bridget in general, good hero, but, play Bridget when you want to counter, like, flankers, things like that. When you'd want to disrupt dive in general. If you want to fuck with the backline, if your backline needs protecting, Bridget's good. If you're having trouble surviving, change to Moira or Lucio, depending on if you need a main healer or not. Because if you need a main healer, you can't change to Lucio, because he's not a main healer. But if you're having trouble surviving, Moira and Lucio are the most survivable supports. So, aside Bridget, but you know, she's a little bit different in her own way. Moira and Lucio are like hard to kill heroes. So if you're having trouble surviving, you're playing against like dive comps, they're good heroes to pick. Moira also gets to do a lot of damage on top of healing. So if you feel like your team is low on the damage end, you can pick Moira to sort of buff up on that. Zenyatta, same concept. He does a lot of damage while being a healer. So you can kind of boost your team's overall DPS by picking them. Mercy, I would say only really pick if there's like a strong synergy on your team, like Pharah, Widowmaker, Soldier, you know. If there's a good synergy on your team, Bastion, you know, then I would say Mercy is worth picking. Or like, if you're playing with like a dive comp, Mercy is good with dive comps because the more mobile your team is, the more mobile Mercy becomes by extension. So that's like the broad strokes, like which map and everything, or we're getting real into it at that point. Like, avoid Moira and Bridget on maps that have, like, a lot of high ground control, because they can't do stuff on high ground, really, you know, like, that's about as into it as I get right now. Best way to deal with the Symmetra that is dealing their team. So, basically pick Pharah. Is the best thing I got for you right there, because she basically, like, wrecks Symmetra, and there's very little she can do about it. Winston is still good against Symmetra, less so because of, like, her turrets being harder to kill, but, like, Winston's still good. That's about the best obvious advice I got for you right there. Like Pharah just, like, wrecks Symmetra, so, like, if Symmetra is, like, being a significant problem for your team, try and get, like, a Winston and a Pharah, and just, like, pressure the fuck out of her, basically. Because there isn't much she can do against those heroes. Like, there's very little. She's, like, basically nothing she can do to Pharah. Winston, she can defend herself, but, like, Winston is still, like, good against her still. Like, if she's carrying them, get a Pharah and wreck her, basically. Main tanking with a flanker behind you. You just killed your Zen, you know Mercy and the DPS are there. You're focusing on holding off their Ryan and Zarya should you turn around and flee. So this is this kind of situation where there is no good answer, and it's going to amount to what you think you need to do at the time. Like, ideally, you don't deal with this as the main tank, because it's not what you're meant to be dealing with, but sometimes you have to. If you think that you taking your attention away from their front line is going to result in their front line, like, running straight into you and let their team bowling over you, you have to just keep blocking them and hope your team can deal with the flanker behind you. If you think that you can take your shield down and the enemy team won't really be able to capitalize on it while you take a few seconds to deal with the flanker, go for it. But, like, you probably have to stay looking at their team and just hope your team can deal with it. Cause if, like, their Reinhardt and Zarya are, like, fucking staring straight at you right now, like, 5 feet away, like, you can't stop blocking them, because, like, your team's gonna get Earth Shattered, Graviton, you're gonna get killed. Like, you gotta, like, they got, like, Soldier and Widowmaker over there still, you need to keep blocking them. Like, there's a lot. It depends on how threatened you feel by the rest of the team at the time. If they're threatening enough, you just have to hope your team can deal with it, because you taking your focus away from them will result in your team dying. But if you think you can get away with it, try and beat them to death. There are exceptions to that. If the flanker is like Tracer, don't bother. You can't do anything really as Reinhardt. If the flanker's Pharah, you can't really do anything as like Reinhardt. So it kinda, if it's like Genji, you can deal with something. If it's Sombra, you can probably drive the Sombra away at least, because she's like less mobile than Tracer is, but like, or like not mobile in the same way Tracer is, I should say. But like if it's like Pharah, you can't help with that. If it's Tracer, you can't help with that. So, like, it depends on how scared you are by the rest of their team at the time as to whether you can realistically do that or not. Ideally, you're not in that situation. It's the kind of situation where there's no good answer for you, unfortunately. It just depends on what you think you can get away with at the time. Voice chat necessary? Nope, I don't use voice chat. Got to Masters. Been to Masters, never talked to another human being. Voice chat's not necessary. Now, it does put a bit more of a burden on you. You have to be better at looking around and, like, tracking things yourself, because you can't rely on somebody calling it out to you as much. But, like, no, voice chat is absolutely not necessary. I got the Masters never talking to anybody. Don't worry about it. When should I not play Tracer? When it starts getting really obnoxious, when the enemy team is something like Bridget, McCree, Farah, Winston. Like, at that point, you're having to keep track of so many things that are a threat to you. You're having to play around all of them. Like, there's not many good targets for you at that point. Like, maybe the healers, or even, like, Lucio, Moira. Like, when it starts getting really, like, obstructive, like, there's so many things you need to be keeping track of, and there's such a risk of dying, and, like, your viable targets is so low. Like, then, don't bother playing Tracer at that point. But Tracer is one of those heroes that is good in probably like 80% of situations. There are not many situations in which Tracer is bad. She is one of those heroes that is, like, consistently just very good, especially if you're very good at Tracer. You can outplay her counters. Like, it doesn't matter if they have, like, a McCree and, like, a Bridget, right? You can outplay those heroes. It's very hard as Bridget to actually kill a Tracer that's very good, because she just doesn't come into your area. Like, you have to be able to get to the Tracer to kill her. And if the Tracer is really good, she won't let you do that. So, you know, same with McCree, right? Like, same concept. So, you know, Tracer's one of those heroes that's almost always good. There are not many situations she's bad. It's basically when you have a very low number of targets and a lot of things you have to keep track of because they're a threat to you. How to carry as a support guide. Easy to understand introduction to Overwatch. That's probably a good thing to make, really, is like just a basic overview of Overwatch. Maybe I'll look into that at some point. Anyway, so that's 2 pages. That's like an hour-long video. Great job, team. We did it. We did it. Hooray. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just share posts with us, and I hope you found the video helpful.